studio. I have board member Steve Dennis. Great to have you here, Steve.
Thanks.
Also, fellow board member and first-time visitor in the studio, as far as I remember anyway, Bill Roseberry. Great to have you here, Bill.
Thank you, sir.
And, of course, co-founder of the Lincoln Prairie Trail Conservancy Program, Bud Altman. Great to have you back here, Bill.
Hi, Avery. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good.
It's good to see you here. So I understand that it's been a little while since we've talked, actually. So why don't we update everybody on what has been going on in the world of the Lincoln Prairie Trail Conservancy?
Okay. First of all, the name is Trails, plural. We put that in the beginning to leave it open for development of future trails or expansion of the trail we have. But anyway, we've got a lot going on right now. First, we have Chili Fest this weekend, and then we're doing a bike rodeo in a couple of weeks after that, working with a couple other organizations. You know, and your next segment will include
all about the bike rodeo.
Everything you need to know about that, or anything anybody wants to know. Anyway, it's just a little bit about us, the Lincoln Prairie Trails Conservancy. We were formed in February 2017 to advocate for the repair, maintenance, promotion, enhancement, and expansion of the Lincoln Prairie Trail. Now, we're all volunteer organization. Our volunteers have done a lot of those things, but the one thing that we haven't done is expansion out of those 5 things, which are, you know, the tenets of our mission statement. And of course, expansion is pretty hard to do with volunteer labor and you know, donated materials and borrowed equipment. But anyway, the bridge, on the bridge, that's the biggest topic right now. It was the first ITEP grant was awarded in December of 2016. Now, through every imaginable delay, it didn't go out for bids until nearly 4 years later in September of 2020. The irony of the whole thing now, when you drive by it, it looks pretty much the same as it did 5 years ago. But the irony is that everything has been done except building the bridge. Now, I mentioned ITEP. That's the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program. That is a program administered by the Illinois Department of Transportation. Now, it mainly finances active transportation projects throughout Illinois through competitive grants funded by state and federal legislation. The state on this cycle, we'll get into cycles in a minute. In this cycle, 80% of the funds, or $100 million statewide, is coming from the Rebuild Illinois project, and then the other 20%, rather, is the traditional ITEP funding, which comes from the federal highway bill. That would be the Bipartisan Infrastructure and Jobs Act. Okay, ITEP is in cycles. They cycle every 2 years, and every 2 years there's a period of a couple of months where projects are submitted, and then once they're submitted, and once the application is up, which is this year, would be this Friday, the 30th of September. The applications statewide are evaluated and scored, and then the way they figure the awards is there's a very elaborate point system they have, and once everyone has their application score, they just go right down from the best score on down until they run out of money. And we have several things. There are several things about our project that kind of might give us a leg up on some of the other people in competition, because they are very, very competitive.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what are some of the things that raise that score, and how does that relate to your project?
Okay. I think the number one thing needs to be mentioned in the case of our project is this project has actually been underway for a long time, and it has actually gone out for bids. And so the project readiness is the term they use for that. And we have, whatever you can get for project readiness, we'll have it. And that's a big thing. Another thing that figures in is with the Rebuild Illinois, which is within the grant project, or within the grant is the community scores, and they're basically determined by some demographic factors. Now, IDOT put these community scores in. Actually, it was cycle 14, which was awarded last year. It's a year late. They're usually done in even number of years. But anyway, and what that allows to do, what it allows lower income, not lower income, but high needs communities to compete with communities that aren't as high needs. Now this is a point system though, so these are just one of the things that go into the points.
Just an example.
Well,
no, I guess I was stating that this is just an example.
Oh yeah, sure.
One example.
Yeah, and then there are a number of things that are also in the guidelines for the application process. Steve, you've watched the webinars as I have. Would you like to add anything about what I've said so far?
So one of the things that got brought up on these webinars, there's been two of them. There's a third one coming up later in October.
It was actually.
Was that?
Yeah, that was
okay,
last
sorry
one.
about that.
Sorry.
But anyway, they review through the process. This is the state, and they're also trying to help explain that it's now an all online process, so you don't have a hard copy anymore. And one thing that I just want to mention is that the representative from the state of Illinois mentioned that this trail is the longest paved trail in central Illinois. And I don't think that's really as well known as what we might think. So when you're talking about people, not only with the two communities and the surrounding communities, but you've also got bike tourists, that this would turn out to be a really great trail.
Yeah. Bill, do you have anything to add?
No. One thing is, another stipulation was that the trails have to, if you're doing a trail, it has to be transportation, and it has to be from point A to point B. There has to be a reason for people to need that trail that we're working on. And so that all went into we'll go into the application, the ability for people to go from both cities to like Lake Taylorville for recreation. There's an ability for people from like Burton Eddy or some of the other subdivisions to get to town or other points. Even if you want to Wanaco, the new pub out there, for an idea. I mean, you have to be, one of the requirements is basically you have to be able to go from point A to point B. It can't be like a loop trail.
But the Taylorville City Council voted to approve the resolution between the city of Hannah and Taylorville for the bike trail project. How significant is that for your efforts?
Well, it's very significant because this is a project that has a shared match on the matching funds. Now, here again, we don't know what the matching funds will be, but we do know what the new number is, and the number, the amount, or the project cost this time's estimated at almost twice as much as what the first one was. The first one was $621,400, and the new grant application will be just almost twice as much as that. And of course, if you're matching funds on an 80-20 grant, that's pretty significant, or any grant. If you're a small city, and and here again, this is one of the things about the community scores, the Rebuild Illinois money that's within the ITEP cycle, and of course, where they consider small towns, and they say specifically small towns. One of the reasons they do this is because we don't have an organization that overlooks planning for an area of 350,000 people. And of course, those areas, MPOs and municipal planning organizations, we're not big enough for that. Our whole county isn't. We could put 3 or 4 counties together and probably not come up with that many people. And so they put that in there, I believe, just to give smaller communities a chance. And and it's I think it'll work. I mean, we have I mentioned trails, that we put that in our name in the first place because we have a trail between here and Springfield that is not yet built, and it meets all the criteria for for building a bike trail, and it's actually owned by the state of Illinois. When of course I'm talking about along Route 29 between here and Springfield. Now,
Of course.
here again, that's expansion. That's the last the fifth of our tenants. And that really can't happen until we are reconnected. And there are a lot of steps in between too. Once we're reconnected, okay, you're going to connect to Edinburgh or on to Springfield. Where how do you get people from 206 Pawpaw Street to the northwest corner of the Walmart parking lot? That's those are some of the things that are in the future, and of course we'll probably be in here talking about them more extensively in the future.
Real quick here, we do got to take a break. So that is co-founder Bud Altman, along with board members Steve Dennis and Bill Roseberry, here on the WTIM Morning Show. More from the Lincoln Prairie Trails Conservancy program right after this here on WTIM, your information station. Your stream brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark.
WTIM. Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back to the WTIM Morning Show. I'm Avery Cooper. Glad to have you along. Your stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark, and People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. I'm here in studio with the Lincoln Prairie Trails Conservancy program. That includes board members Steve Dennis and Bill Roseberry and co-founder Bud Altman. So I wanted to mention something a little bit about PANA too, but we talked a lot about the Taylorville City Council. But Bill, I know that you've been paying a lot to the PANA side of things. Is there anything that you'd like to say about this effort and agreement between the two cities to keep this trail going?
Well, there were some questions about PANA's desire to see the trail, work. And we've been going to several meetings. We've met with Nathan Pastor, the mayor of PANA, and he assured us that PANA was interested in the trail. And we've gone to a couple of city council meetings in PANA. And recently the desire was shown that the vote was 5-0, 6-0. I don't remember exactly how many. It was unanimous.
Oh.
And so they voted to go through with their part of applying for the grant. They are interested. Last week, Steve and I went out. We took the truck out and drove the whole trail, the length of it, because people have been complaining about, nobody working out there. And the PANA side of it looks really good. People have been mowing. They've been doing different trail clearing brush, etc., picking up trash. And Steve might want to throw a comment in on that.
Well, yeah, I know, Steve, you and me, we've talked a lot about accessibility around Taylorville and surrounding communities. And I know that actually really right outside of the studios, if you take a right, there's an area where you've been paying a little bit of attention to.
Yeah, actually, excuse me. The alderman and the mayor have had projects for the last couple of years that I'm aware of, and that is with repairing sidewalks that are in bad shape. And if you look in your ward, you'll see where new sidewalks have been repaired and ongoing. And then the project you're talking about is Bill actually noticed a gentleman in a wheelchair in the roadway under the railroad underpass here, and because he couldn't get through on the sidewalk. Well, we notified the mayor and we notified Chris Scultity, one of the aldermen, and the next day they had Illinois Department of Corrections inmates and there's street department staff clearing that sidewalk off so that they can assess it better to see what needs to be done to get it fixed. So that's another thing where we're trying to see about improving access around town to get to point and get to the trail.
Right. And that's the big part right there. Improving access around town, right? Not just along the trail, but throughout. How can you get from one side of town to the Walmart, etc.?
That's right. And so we do have some opportunities for some sidewalks that need to be built, gaps need to be plugged. But we're also talking about signage for what's a safe route. So whether you're walking, biking, you're in a wheelchair or a scooter, we want to make it so that people don't have to use a car to get to businesses, to healthcare, to restaurants, etc.
Bud, any other thoughts you have before we go here? I know that, well, we're going to be talking a little bit more about that here in a moment. So.
Sure.
But with another group of folks. So maybe you could provide a little bit of a lead in.
Basically, we have kind of evolved. I mean, we're still doing all the things that we can, as part of our mission statement. But by doing those things, we're automatically involved in active transportation, and we're encouraging active transportation. We're doing everything to advocate for that. And now active transportation, that is the definition of that is simply anytime you get from point A to point B under your own power. And a subject we won't discuss is e-bikes, because you're not.
Well, I do know that you have a bike rodeo here real quick coming up here in just a moment, but we're going to talk with the Taylorville Memorial Foundation about that. So I want to thank co-founder Bud Altman and board members Steve Dennis and Bill Roseberry of the Lincoln Prairie Trails Conservancy Program. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Your stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark and People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first.
Your information station, WTIM.